sex, life, and tech. If you're 21 or 101, we love them all. Welcome to Age Blind with Nancy AF.
Hey, boys and girls, welcome back to Age Blind, the place where the date on your birth certificate is meaningless, and we look for things that we have in common from the 20s all the way to the hundreds, which is where I plan to end up. I have 30 years to go. I'll be turning 70 in February, and I feel like I'm just getting started. And today's topic is really just in time for the holiday season. And we're going to try to keep it upbeat and positive as opposed to doomy and gloomy and stressy. And I'm super excited about my guest today. She is a LCSW, which is a licensed social worker, mental health expert, trauma and child mental health specialist. And she also is an educator and she has her own podcast. So welcome, Stacy Pelletier. And we're going to be talking about a topic that does span all ages, which is how to avoid holiday stress. And we're right on the cusp. As we're recording this, Thanksgiving is a mere 2 weeks away. So people have already started planning their menus and inviting guests and making travel plans. So Stacy, welcome to Age Blind.
Thank you so much. That was a great welcome. I'm so excited to be here. And this is a very important topic because stress and holidays go hand in hand. And so I love to kind of be proactive and get ahead of it and speak to people before it starts so that they can hopefully have a little bit more of a peaceful time and enjoy and be present.
So why are the holidays so stressful for so many people?
So, there's a couple of different really, I think, trending issues that we see. What really walks through our door, we serve thousands of people in our practice, is we see number one, people feel this need to please others and they feel a need to do things perfectly. So a lot of the stress that comes from holidays is wanting to have the perfect dinner, wanting to make sure everybody gets along, wanting to make sure we're pleasing everybody with the menu, wanting to make sure we're buying the perfect gifts, right? So whether it's Thanksgiving or Christmas or Hanukkah, whatever it may be, there's lots of different holidays that we come into, regardless of what time of year it is. A lot of it has to do with the role that we play in our family and the expectations we put on ourselves. And this is an opportunity to interact and it's an opportunity to perform. And if we're not providing expectations that are realistic for ourselves or realistic expectations of others, these holidays are going to be stressful. So,
Absolutely. And, even as an adult, as I said, I'm almost 70. Now, I talk a lot about what I call, the micro traumas and the micro triggers that, just being in a room with certain family members or relatives can be triggering. So, talk a little bit about that. Like, first of all, as a trained mental health professional, what exactly is a trigger? And how do you know when something is triggering you?
sure, absolutely. That being said, I definitely don't want to leave out all the other things like people who don't want to eat too much and now they're going to have all this food in front of them, right? That's the reason why people get stressed. And finances could be a reason why people get stressed because now they have to spend more than they can afford to spend on food and gifts and all these things. So, all of the different things that cause stress over the holidays are all triggers. Triggers are either things that we've experienced in the past that are experiences that have not been positive. These are experiences that, in some way, shape, or form, have left us with this belief, either a felt sense or a thought that make us feel like we are in some sort of a threat. There's some sort of danger attached to the event. And the event could be there's going to be too much food. Or for the picky eater, it's what if there's food I don't like and I offend people? Struggle financially, it could be what if I have this expectation that I have to spend more than I can afford? Or what if I'm not able to please everybody? What if there's conflict around me and people don't get along? And so
Yeah, I'm
all
actually doing an episode about how to get along with people whose beliefs are radically different from yours. I think the current political environment and religious and sexual orientation differences, I think, have added an entire layer of complexity. I remember as a kid having
Mhm.
arguments with my parents and my brother over the Vietnam War. But now that everything is so much more public, and we'll dive into that a little bit later too, the role of social media in making people that much more stressed. So, if you know that something or someone at a gathering has the potential to trigger you, how can you prepare? I call it like pre-gaming for holiday stress.
Yeah, it's a hard one, right? So I think that the first and foremost, whether it be a person that's a trigger or anything that might be happening around the holiday that's a trigger, acceptance is a really good place to start. It's not simple. It is very complex and nuanced, but if we can work towards, being in a place of acceptance with what is triggering us, then we can at least come into it with a place of calm. And so what I mean by that is if I'm going to be really triggered by Uncle Joe because, his ideology and his beliefs and who he voted for is totally different than mine. And I know that he's going to want to talk about it. And I get so frustrated with the things that he says. And it just brings up all my frustration and all my fear. And I'm going to feel sick. So, my suggestion would be to go to Thanksgiving dinner in acceptance of who Uncle Joe is. You don't have to like what Uncle Joe talks about, and you don't have to like his ideology or his beliefs, but can we accept that this is something we cannot change? This is what Uncle Joe is going to talk about. This is who Uncle Joe is. This is what Uncle Joe believes. I'm really sorry for anybody who has a lovely Uncle Joe out there. I just picked this name out of a hat, but it's so important to kind of just, if we go into something without the expectation that we're going to try to change it or that it's going to be different this time, right? To say this is going to come up and that's okay. I don't have to like it. I don't have to feel good about it. I don't have to agree with it, but I don't have to allow it to trigger me. I can still be safe even though Uncle Joe might be talking about something that I don't like. And how do I stay in my safe place? How do I stay in my safe zone? If you go prepared with certain grounding techniques, whether it be mindfulness or breathing or taking a short break outside or having a safe person there that you can kind of like make that eye contact with and give that little smile and like that's your connection with somebody that you can co-regulate with. These are all things, going in there with this expectation that it's going to be different or that you're going to change it sets us up for that trigger point that comes in where we feel like we're in danger. If we expect it to be bad, we expect ourselves not to be able to handle it, and we expect ourselves to get into a fight or be upset when it happens, then we're going to feel the threat the moment that person is in front of us. If we don't see them as a threat because we're in acceptance of who they are, and if we don't like certain things, then we're no longer going to be triggered, even though we don't like that. Does that make
It
sense?
makes total sense. I love that. And I actually once had an executive coach when I worked in corporate that when I was tempted to open my mouth and say something that I might later regret, to just like, for those of you who are watching on YouTube, you see me do it, to just like put my hand over my mouth as if I was being thoughtful. So I'm basically muzzling myself. And I would just nod my head and say, that's a really interesting point of view. And it was almost like
Mhm.
training myself to respond in a way that was not what I was really tempted to do, but it was like self-scripting in a way that calmed me down. I joked around that it was my corporate pacifier. Just like as long as my hand was over my mouth, I wasn't going to say something that I might later regret. And I love the idea of just, saying, "Oh, I'm going to go get a little bit of fresh air." I think that that pumpkin pie was so delicious. I think I'm going to go back and treat myself to another slice, unless you happen to have a problem with emotional overeating, in which
Mhm.
case, do you have any tips? Because people do tend to self-medicate with food, and then it just builds on itself. You're like, "Oh my God, I hate myself. I just ate 6 pieces of pumpkin pie at the holiday dinner," or, "I wasn't gonna do that, but I just found myself stuffing my face with comfort food."
Yeah. You know what that is? You talked about that, that muzzle that you put over your mouth. Like the food is the same thing, right? It's but the beautiful thing about it is that, what you did, right? That is your technique. That is you reminding yourself, right? That I don't have to give into or be triggered by what's in front of me. And we can do the same thing with food. If we know that we're going to overeat and then feel sick and feel bad about it, having a technique ready to use, whether it be going outside and getting air or trying box breathing or so blow up the balloon breathing, things that really stimulate the vagus nerve, going into the bathroom and running your hands under cold water, being mindful of what's showing up for you and what you're feeling to say, I want to just stuff my face right now to keep my mouth shut so that I don't get into an argument with this family member, or I'm feeling so triggered by what's coming up from my past, these childhood traumas from my family role here that I'm being reminded of right now. So, really being aware of what's happening for you and being able to sit with the discomfort, right? If we can tolerate distress to say, you know what, this is a little bit uncomfortable and I can tolerate being a little bit uncomfortable. And here's some strategies I use to ground myself when I'm uncomfortable. The eating, the overeating, the emotional eating is wanting to avoid distress, right? It's self-medicating. It's I'm going to trigger chemicals in my brain that are going to push the distress away. And then the distress is just going to come right back.
Oh, especially if you are medicating with too much alcohol or too much sugar, and something that I've come to realize, because sugar and alcohol are chemicals. And if you self-medicate with chemicals, it might feel good in the moment, but if you have that extra martini or you eat a little too much sugar, it could actually, I'm not a trained nutritionist, but I'm just basing it on my own body chemistry. So what
Mhm.
have started doing when I go to other people's homes is I bring something that I know that I can eat, that is safe food. I'm like, oh, I don't care if anybody else is touching my gluten-free pumpkin bread. I'm just gonna have 2 slices of that because I know it's safe food. And just, a plug for what you do for a living. If you do happen to have a mental health professional in your life, or if you even if you don't, it's a really good time to do some of that preventative pre-gaming, as I call it. Like when my mother was dying, I reached out to my therapist during her last months and I said, I know this is going to be a stressful time for me. Can you give me some techniques? The same way football players sit down with their coach or their trainer to train for the big game. If you know that you're heading into a rough family situation, get help before you need it, because that will give you the
Absolutely.
techniques that you need. That's why I'm doing this episode in advance of Thanksgiving. So those people who may not have a therapist in their life or don't have the money, although there are a lot of free resources these days, I strongly suggest you pregame so that you're planning for it. So, those are for the people who know that they're going to have other people in their lives who might trigger them. The flip side of it is people who are single or alone over the holidays who are now being just overwhelmed by all of this social media stuff of people prepping their homes and making the food. And, not everybody has family or friends to spend the holidays with. So if you're going to be spending the holidays alone, or if you have a very small family, or if you're estranged from your family, what are some simple ways you can avoid those feelings of loneliness, depression, and most importantly, FOMO? 'Cause like, "Whoa, why aren't I in a Hallmark movie this year? Like, why haven't I met my love in the Montana ranch?" I just
Yeah.
actually watched the first Hallmark holiday movie of the season, and I did an episode where we talked about what to watch and what to avoid over the holiday season. So for
Right.
those people who are single or alone, what do you suggest?
I think it's so important, just like you said, not to glorify what it means to not be single and to not be alone on the holidays, right? Because the reality is nobody is living in a Hallmark movie, right? No one's situation is perfect, even those of us who might be with family and have people to be with. I think the meaning that we assign to whether we are with or not with somebody on the holiday. If you're going to be alone on Thanksgiving, or you're only going to be with one or two people on Thanksgiving, and it's going to feel like you're missing out on that, big, long, 20-person table that you're seeing posted on Facebook. And you're like, oh, I don't have that, right? What meaning are you assigning to it? What does it mean to have so many people? What does it mean to only have a few people? What does it mean to have no people that are available for you that day? If you're looking at it and you're saying, oh, that means this about me, or that means that about me, can we reframe it? Can we shift it? What do you know to be true about yourself, even if on this particular day, your family is across the country and you just can't get to them because you've got a lot of other things going on, or, whatever it is, how can I enjoy this day? How can I make this day a treat for myself? You know what? It's a day off. I'm not going to work today. There's no hustle and bustle. I can spend a calm day at home with myself. And how can I treat myself today? What can I do for myself? How can I make this a special day for myself? And say, this is how I'm spending my day. And my day can be just as beautiful and wonderful and special as the day can be for somebody who is going to be with 10 family members. Every experience is what we make it. And so if we're going to make that day alone, or that day with very few people, a good day, it all is about mindset. It's about gratitude. It's about harnessing positive thought so that we can release the chemicals in our brain that make us feel calm and connected, as opposed to feeding our mind with thoughts like, why don't I have anybody? What's wrong with me? I'm not doing what everyone else is doing, right? And these things aren't true. It's not what everybody else is doing. And if it's so upsetting to you, ask yourself, what does this mean about me? And how can I reframe that? What else do I know to be true about myself? And is the meaning I'm assigning to this really accurate, or am I being really hard on myself?
And just stay off of Facebook and Instagram that day.
Helps
'Cause
too.
yeah, and it's funny because, I've been single now for a while. I'm divorced, and my ex always gets Christmas and I get Thanksgiving. And when my mom was alive, I used to go down and, because my family celebrated Hanukkah, I would go down to Tucson and I'd bring her Chinese food. And that's always the running joke, is that on Christmas, Jewish people go to the movies and get Chinese food, which I have done in past
Me
years.
too.
And then the thing that I've done is I will sometimes buy myself little gifts that are things that have been on my Amazon gift list, and sometimes one splurgy thing. And I put them under the tree or under the menorah. And on Christmas morning, I put on my holiday PJs and I open the gifts that I bought for myself. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. I don't have to deal with any family members. I don't have to cook. And I have a list of 100 things that bring me joy. And if I run out of things to do, I just look at that list and I pick something. So,
Yep.
yeah,
Treat yourself, right? What special thing can I do for myself today? It's a day off. I'm alone, right? Watch your favorite movie, paint your
yeah,
nails, right? Cook yourself something or order in, right? Eat your favorite meal, right? Enjoy your day at home. And like sometimes I even say to somebody, what if it wasn't Thanksgiving and it was just Thursday and you had a day off for yourself, right? Would you enjoy the day? Right? You're not enjoying the day because you're assigning this meaning to it. It's Thanksgiving and I'm supposed to
right.
be with, I'm supposed to be doing, right? We have to make sure that we keep the shoulds at bay and we don't
Exactly.
infiltrate.
And to not do things out of compulsion. Like there was one Thanksgiving that I said, oh, I don't have
Mm.
anything to do. I'm going to sign up for this meetup group. And it was a group of random women, and they ended up scheduling the dinner in like this family friendly restaurant. And it was super depressing. And I'm like, all right, next year I would rather be alone than be with these people. It's also and I have friends say to me, oh man, I wish I were alone on Christmas rather than doing what I need to do out of obligation.
A
So,
lot of people do that.
they'll
And you
always
brought up social media. So one quick point about that, I think it's so important that people remember everybody is posting their facades on social media. You're only seeing the people posting their table that have done the perfect table, that are so excited to show everybody the perfect table that they did because they have the need to please. Look at my table, look at me. The people that don't have a table, that are alone, they're not posting a solo picture of themselves and saying, hi, I'm alone on Thanksgiving. There's so many people out there that are alone, that don't have the big table. They're just not posting about it. They're out there though.
So let's start a movement this Christmas. I want to see those solo pictures of all of my friends and family who are celebrating solo and are happy to do it.
We should do that.
Yeah, I will. You gave me a big idea. I will post that before the holidays. I'm not sure yet what I'm doing for Hanukkah or Christmas or New Year's this year, but I will do every year have a tradition of seeing all the Oscar nominated movies before um, the Oscar nominations, are live, or the Oscars are live. So yeah, that's just a tradition, and make your own traditions, because
Yes.
who says that a tradition is making a ham or a turkey and sitting around a table with people who you may or may not like.
I
So
love that. Make your own Home on Thanksgiving tradition, right? And then look forward to it every year.
exactly, exactly. So again, obviously, I'm a big proponent of therapy. I was in my 50s before I sought out the help of an independent person to help me work through stuff. So, which is kind of ironic because I almost became a therapist, but I resisted therapy for a lot of years. For those people who are thinking of reaching out to somebody for help with things that they're grappling with, what are the things that you should look for in a therapist? And every time I have a therapist on my podcast, I ask that question.
Mm. I think the most important thing is that number one, first and foremost, go to somebody who has expertise and training in a lot of different modalities. There's so many wonderful, amazing different techniques and modalities out there. And I will tell you, as a therapist for 30 years, no one is one size fits all, right? One modality can work so well for somebody, while somebody else needs something entirely different. And so you want to go to somebody who doesn't just try to do what, like, everybody gets CBT or everybody gets mindfulness because that's the one modality that therapist knows best. Go to somebody who has an eclectic approach, who really is going to be able to see you, meet you where you're at, be patient with you, and form a treatment plan together with you that is going to really uniquely work for you. I think that's really the most important thing. You should have a conversation with them, see how you feel when you're talking to them, because that therapist could be brilliant and be one of the best therapists in the world. If you're not comfortable and you can't speak your truth and feel like you could be yourself with this person, and you don't see that as a possibility for you, then this person isn't going to be the right person for
Right. And
you.
feel free
So,
to shop around, because not
yes,
everybody's going to be the right
yes,
fit for everybody. And
exactly.
that doesn't mean that therapy doesn't work, which people will sometimes say. They go, "Oh, I went to a therapist, it didn't work." I'm like, well, then you had the wrong therapist. Like, you need to, like, finding the right hairdresser. I mean, it's a lot more
Mhm.
serious than that, but don't be afraid to shop around. That doesn't mean that hairdressers shouldn't exist. It just means that you didn't find your match yet. So it's like any close
Exactly,
relationship.
exactly.
So how
And if someone says, "Hey, I go to this therapist and she's amazing, you should go to her," maybe, but maybe that person's amazing for your friend, but isn't necessarily going to be amazing for you. So be open to, interviewing different people and finding someone that feels right.
And don't be afraid. I mean, it was funny when I was looking for a therapist, I came across people who didn't want to refer me to their therapist, which was very weird. Like, were they afraid that I was going to run into them in the office or hear through the wall? Like, I don't know what it was. It was like finding something that's so special you don't want to share it. So,
Hmm.
my therapist, who I have known for years, was actually a recommendation from a close girlfriend. And I've referred her to other people who I know, like, and trust. And again, she's may not be for everybody, but she was great for me and great for some of the people who I referred her to. So,
Hmm.
how can people get more Stacy? I know you've got a podcast. You have an online presence. Where can people find you?
Sure. Thanks for asking. So, my podcast is pretty new. I haven't been doing it too long. It's called Why Do People Do That?
Love
So
you.
that's easy to remember, right? So we're on Apple and Spotify and YouTube and any place that you can, listen to a podcast. It's just Why Do People Do That? My website for the podcast is whydopeopledo.that.com. And my practice is Long Island Counseling. So the website is actually longislandcounselingservices.com.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Stacey. I hope that all of our listeners and viewers have a much better holiday for having listened to this episode. And if you
Hmm.
have topics that you would like us to cover in future podcasts about sex, life, and tech across the generations, please be sure to reach out. You could follow me on Instagram at nancyaf_. Obviously, if you're listening or viewing, you've already found the podcast, which is called Age Blind. It's on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you happen to get your content. And if you follow me on Instagram, go to my link tree, which is like an index of all of my stuff, and you'll find other content, my Substack, my blog, and other tidbits that I post throughout the year to help you live a better, more fulfilling, happier, badass life at any age, whether you are 19 or my personal age is 69 or 109, which more and more people are going to live to be that age. And no matter how old you are this holiday season, show grace to people of all ages, be age blind. Peace out.